In this week's video, I want to take a look at some of the lesser known camera features that can be easily missed, as well as some of the features that can be a little bit confusing. And I'm going to be featuring Canon, Nikon and Fujifilm cameras. Welcome to the Photo Genius channel. Hi, Paul here from Photo Genius. Welcome to the channel. If you are new here, I'm a full-time photography tutor based here in Brisbane. I've been sharing photography tips on this channel for over 8 years. In fact, there's over 250 videos available to watch for free. So if, like me, you are passionate about photography and enjoy this type of content, please hit the like button and also consider subscribing so you don't miss out on future videos. So as I mentioned in the intro, in this week's video I want to help make sense of some of the camera features that can be a little bit confusing. As usual, I will also be sharing some bonus tips, so I hope you will stick around and enjoy the video. So let's start with a camera feature that I often get asked about when I'm talking or working with Canon users. What on earth does EXP SIM mean? So depending on how you use your camera, you may see this displayed on the LCD screen or in the viewfinder. Now this is actually short for exposure simulation, and what this means is that what you see on the screen is a representation of how your image will turn out. So if the screen looks dark, then it's likely your image is going to be very dark, and we call this underexposure. But likewise, if the screen is really bright, it's going to mean that your image is very likely to be too bright or overexposed. Now this is actually a very useful camera feature, and if you've got a mirrorless camera it's usually turned on by default, but you can also turn it on or off by going into the camera's menu. How you correct or make adjustments to exposure will depend on which camera mode you wish to use. The manual mode will give you the most control, but if you're new to photography, then I suggest trying the program mode for starters. You can then simply adjust the exposure using the dial on the camera. Using the program mode, turning the dial on this Canon R50 changes the shutter speed, with the camera automatically adjusting the aperture to maintain a balanced exposure. But if I want to adjust the exposure for effect, I press the exposure compensation button, and now I can over or underexpose the image to get the result that I want. Exposure compensation is such a great camera feature that I've made a dedicated video all about it. You'll find a link in the description below. Now next up is the touch icon, and you should see this on the screen if you're using your camera in the live view mode. If you're using the screen, also called live view, to compose and take a photo, look for this icon. You can press the icon to either enable or disable touch shutter. Now with the feature disabled, I can touch the screen to establish where I would like the camera to focus. Turning touch shutter on, now when I touch the screen, the camera will focus and take a picture. With this Nikon camera and touch autofocus turned on, you can clearly see the camera adjusting the focus based on where I'm touching the screen. So this is really useful and is a feature found on most cameras that have touch screens. Now bonus tip, live view is a great camera feature, but it will drain the battery much quicker than using the viewfinder. With most mirrorless cameras, when you turn them on, the screen will be in the live mode by default. And to clarify, live view means that what the camera sees is displayed on the screen in real time and the camera is ready to shoot. But live view can be a big drain on the battery. Now if you press the info button on the back of the camera, you can change what is displayed on the screen. Now this screen I use as my default because it shows me all the essential camera info such as shutter speed, aperture, ISO and much more. Now if I want to take a photo, I can either put the camera up to my eye and use the viewfinder, or if I want to use the screen, I just press the info button once to turn live view back on. Now with some cameras like this Canon 80D, you may see an exclamation mark displayed in the viewfinder. If you do, then this is simply a reminder that you have selected the monochrome or black and white mode. If you've never tried shooting in black and white before, it's definitely worth a go. On a Nikon camera, just look for picture control and select MC for monochrome. If you're using a Canon camera, then select Picture Style and again select M. And if you're a Fujifilm user, go to the Film Simulations. There will be many options with B for black and white. Another tip for Nikon users: if you're using your Nikon camera and you've ever wondered what this hand symbol means, this is linked to vibration reduction. Now, some lenses have a switch for turning vibration reduction on or off, but some don't. So if you have a lens that has VR but doesn't have the switch, all you need to do is to press the menu button on the camera. And then in the shooting menu, look for optical VR, where you can select on or off. The general rule of thumb is to leave VR on unless the camera is on a tripod. Now here's a really handy tip. If you're using a camera that has that retro design, like most of the Fujifilm cameras and also the Nikon ZFC that I'm using to record this week's video. Now the retro camera design is certainly cool, but changing the shutter speed using the dial on top of the camera can slow you down. Plus, you can only adjust the shutter speed in increments of 1 stop. But there is a quicker and easier way. With this Fujifilm X100V, for example, by selecting T on the dial, you can then turn the command dial on the back of the camera to adjust the shutter speed. It's much quicker, plus you can now adjust in increments of 1/3 of a stop, so you have more control over the exposure. The Nikon ZFC is another great camera that features an old school shutter dial on the top of the camera. Again, a much slower way of making adjustments with limits, but selecting 1/3 step on the dial and again turning the command dial on the back of the camera, and you can now adjust the shutter speed quicker and in increments of 1/3 of a stop. So I really hope you've enjoyed this week's video and you picked up some great tips. If you did, please consider hitting the like button because it does make a difference. Also, if you don't want to miss out on future videos from me, make sure you subscribe. It's free. Okay, that's about it, other than to say thanks for watching and I hope to see you again sometime soon. See ya. Bye.